Here we are at Trail 7. We're dealing with instincts. Last week, this week, and that whole problem when we get right to the edge of our lives. We have to make that choice. That what we're going to call on Trail 7 is gut check. That moment that you check to see how you're doing. Are you just way too close to the edge? You see, what happens for us is our instincts are actually designed to protect us around the edge. The instincts are to help us with the cliffs of life, to know exactly how far we need to get close to the edge and how far back we need to go. It's interesting that it's not as simple as some of you are fearless and you can run right up to an edge and it doesn't scare you, and some of you are petrified of heights. It isn't that simple. It's actually far more complex than that because so many factors go into how we deal with the struggles within us when it comes to our instincts, whether they're balanced or not balanced. So let's work that out. Let me read you this statement that'll help you with trail number 7, gut check. It's this statement. In any given behavioral decision, there are both good and bad reasons for a choice. Some decisions might be 5-4 in favor of a particular action, and thus ambivalence exists. Ambivalent action, not completely trying, robs the individual of the wisdom of that choice. Here's a situation that we find ourselves in, guys. That when it comes to our instincts, when it comes to what to do when we get to the very edge of danger, to know whether to take another step forward, to take a step back, to what to do, it's not simply a matter of black and white. There are so many parts that come into it. There are so many factors. Half the factors cause you to say, I need to move forward and do this, and half of them say, I need to pull back. That's what instincts are all about. There are so many factors that cause us to sometimes hit that moment we go, I'm not sure whether I should do this or not. We're right on that edge where there's 4 no's, 4 yeses, and the 5th will cause you to decide one way or the other. And that's where it sort of gets a little scary. Consider these concepts when we think about those factors. If you do this, if you don't take action and you become ambivalent, you're going to fail to realize achievement. In other words, your fear will dominate you, and instead of you achieving what you were designed to do, you'll actually be spending your whole life standing at the top of the cliff going, I can't go any further, I should go further, but I'm afraid, and I don't want to just walk away, it's too beautiful or too cool or whatever it is, and our achievement level gets cut back. That's when we can't make that decision, and we just kind of stand frozen. Dealing with your instincts will help you push through that. Here's another one. He fails to develop his personal strength. See, I don't like heights, but I love rappelling. To this day, when I go rappelling, that very first moment when I go over the edge of the cliff and I'm leaning back in and the carabiners I know they work, I know how this whole thing happens, but it's just going over that edge is so scary. The strength that I develop every time I go over the edge is I'm not just conquering my fear. I'm not just depending on the rope and the harnesses and the gear. What I'm actually doing is I'm actually strengthening who I am, taking me a little beyond my comfort zone, causing me to say, you know what, I'm capable of more than I thought I was. That's the journey of instincts. What instincts do for us is it allows us the opportunity to say, I can be more than I am because my instincts will help me guard along the direction as long as I keep them in balance. So, achievement and personal development, but watch this one as well. He fails to receive clear feedback. You're not going to get that feedback we talked about the other day, that if you don't take this risk and say, I don't want you jumping off the cliff, I don't want you going too far, I don't want you falling to your death. It's if I don't take this next step, testing the ground and all of that, I'm going to never understand what I can actually do. Now, why do you take the next step and test the ground? Well, it's feedback to see whether you think that piece of the ground will hold you on this edge. I don't want men playing on the edge. I want you playing on your edge. I don't want you being this risk taker that's a crazy guy. I want you to be a man that's taking your being as a knight to the highest place it can go. In your nightly news, there's a man by the name of Mordecai. Mordecai's an interesting guy. Mordecai's a guy that allows us to feel that the common, ordinary man can do extraordinary things. Let me tell you about Mordecai. He's a slave. He's actually a slave that's been given a high place in the kingdom. He's given a high place in the kingdom because he's a wise man. Because of things he shares well. He's developed extremely well. He has a gorgeous, gorgeous niece. Her name is Esther. It's what the book of Esther, you'll see his story is in that book about her name. It's the only book in the Bible that doesn't use the name of God, and yet it teaches more principles about God than just about anything else you'll read. It's this moment, though, where Mordecai is a man of high principles. He's sort of on the edge, because here's the edge he's on. There's a guy by the name of Haman who's a second in command below the king. Haman expects everybody to bow to him. Mordecai bows only to God, doesn't bow to him. So as a result of that, Mordecai is getting in trouble. He's standing on the edge, getting in trouble, and the whole nation of Israel actually gets in trouble because Haman talks King Xerxes into killing all the Jews, of which his queen, Esther, the niece of Mordecai, is one. Something happens for Mordecai at this moment. He says to his niece, listen, we are doing what is right. However, the nation of Israel is in serious trouble, and you're going to have to go into the king's presence. She goes, I can't go into the king's presence unless he calls for me. He kills anybody who comes into his presence unless he drops his scepter. He hasn't called for me for a while. He goes, you need to do this. And then the verse that is in Esther chapter 3, verse 14, says, right at the end of the verse, it says, don't you know, what if you were made for just such a time as this? Let me read it for you exactly as the verse goes. It says, who knows if perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this. Mordecai, playing on an edge, takes her to the edge of her own experience so she can become one of the greatest women we've ever known. She become this woman that makes this huge change. She does take that risk. And the story of Esther is an amazing story. You need to read that. It's probably the most powerful story of sequences as God, even though not mentioned in the whole book, as God is working out the highest good of those who learn the art of having their gut checked by God and letting their instincts do what they're designed to do. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at 3 more instincts today that I think will help us in the journey a little bit towards being all that you're designed to do. Follow me. Roman numeral 1, the instinct to fight. Now, see, we talked last week about fleeing, we talked about self-preservation, we talked about bonding. This one, the instinct to fight, is true of men and women. Women will tend to fight more parochially, more involved with family units, more in because of bonding things, and guys will tend to fight just because they fight. So, as a result of that, for you, you're going to have to check this, gut check it a little bit harder. Now, what's it good for? How's it work? Look at number 1. There are times when aggressive responses are helpful, such as when unhealthy nations and dictators attempt to politically dominate. There are times when injustice is taking place. Innocents are being wounded, and you have to step up and say, wait a minute, I can't do that. You know, throughout history, there have been children who have stood up against other children who are being unfair to children. The whole big thing's going on about bullying in our country. It's about when there's this kind of this innocence. On a national level, when those that are helpless are involved in being wounded and dangerous and killed, and there's a time when fighting becomes necessary. And a lot of wars have been fought over those noble reasons. As you well know, a lot of wars have not been fought over noble reasons. Look at another reason. When an individual blames others, thereby refuse to take responsibility and avoiding healthy pushback. There's a time sometimes when somebody in a family, let's say, is doing something that is making it everybody else's problem and wounding everybody. I can't tell you, my wife came through a horrible, horrible background. Her mom and dad were very dysfunctional. The background in which she experienced some of her growing up has all kinds of, there's alcohol abuse involved, there's sexual abuse involved, there's all kinds of junk. There are times when I have to fight, I had to fight early on in our marriage against that. Now, to be honest with you, I was a terrible warrior. I didn't do a very good job of it. Both her parents are dead now, and I haven't had the chance I didn't have a chance to protect her as I could have. But there are times you have to fight against that, which is unhealthy, both on your own being and on the being of on behalf of others. Family is the easiest place to see this, although it takes place, as I mentioned, in a lot of other areas when people are being bullied. Look at another reason why it's a good reason to fight. When defending one's viewpoint is necessary for the team to come up with the best decision. This one's more of a work-related thing. It's when you defend your viewpoint. So have you ever been sitting around a table with a bunch of people and everybody seems to be going in one direction, but you got this gut, you got this instinct that if you don't push this, this is a wrong decision that's going to be made. Sometimes for the good of the team, you got to be willing to stand up and fight for your own perspective. I remember one time, one of my sons said something cruel to their mother. For the sake of the team, I had to respond. Now, I was trying very much not to ever be physically harmful to my sons. But I remember at this moment, I just sort of lost it. I just jumped in there. And actually, my older son said, whoa, back down a little bit, Dad. Now, I wanted to jump in and deal with it. I just couldn't quite bring that instinct all the way into control. I needed to fight. I needed to protect Lynn. She needed to be honored. But I also needed to have that brought into balance and into control. And that's always true with our instincts. Gut, check. That's what we do. Look at the next one. When those he loves need to feel the commitment of being fought for. Now, here's several ways we need to fight for those who are being loved. One, protecting from their enemies. In other words, we need that idea of how do we protect one person from another. You remember when you were a kid? And you always say this, my dad can beat up your dad. Now, I don't think I could beat up anybody, but my kids would say that about me. My dad can beat up your dad. You know what that is? It's the family being protected by someone who's bigger than life. And when my kids were little, I was bigger than life. Now, all of my sons are bigger than me now. All of them. So the reality is that now I go, can you guys protect me? Can my sons beat up your sons? But the reality was when that time, they were saying, we believe this should take place. This is the ones you love. So this is getting to the very tight family relationship. Look at the next one. Those he loves need to feel the commitment of being fought for by confronting them with the expectations that will follow their principles. Just so you know, if one of my sons comes and he asks me if I love him to let him do X, and X is damaging to him, I will say no. I will fight for principle. That's part of fighting. And there are times when I've had to take stands on stuff that are very, very uncomfortable. There are issues that I'll suddenly lose my popularity with my kids. Doesn't really matter. It's not a popularity contest. I am not their buddy. I'm their dad. I think that so often we miss this. I think we get caught up in not learning to fight for the right things. Guys, you have an instinct to fight for something, don't back down. Every once in a while I get caught up and get confused because I feel like I should have fought for something and I backed down from it. And I didn't have good models. My dad would back down. He would fight for stupid things and not fight for good things. And so I don't really sometimes know exactly what I should stand with. And so I'm constantly going to guys that I trust and going to my God. And, of course, Lynn and I work this out. But I think so often this is what you and I have to zero in on. There are times we have to fight for principle. There's a third area when we love our families. I love those around us. Spending quality time with them. I'm going to fight for time. I don't know about you guys, but I have a lot of time commitments. It's so simple to work a 60-hour week. I mean, so easy. Matter of fact, 60-hour weeks sometimes are more the norm than the exception. And I will tell you, I think there's danger in that, guys, especially if you have children, especially if they're younger. I have certain of my sons needed to spend time with me. My second son and my fourth son need time spent. My oldest son and my third son need other issues in their love language, but my two sons need that. I'm going to have to make time with them. I have to make time for Lynn, and you have to fight your schedule for that. I have a AA who works for me. She is amazing. She is so gifted at what she does. She's my gatekeeper. You can't make an appointment with me just on a one-on-one conversation. You will have to talk to her. And then she'll tell you that I'm 4 weeks out. And the reason I'm 4 weeks out is my calendar is that full, but she's just buffering for me. She's allowing me to this idea of, man, I got to make sure that he is not blowing what's important. Gatekeeper, fight for that. She fights for it in my life. I fight for it in my life. Lynn fights for it in our life. The next one is supporting them emotionally. It's our job to support the ones we love emotionally. So that means that you let them talk. We have an open door policy in our house, in our bedroom. Guys knock, they come in. On very rare occasions, if they knock and they can't open the door, they know not to come in. But outside of that, they knock, they come in. And you know what? My 17-year-old, who's definitely bigger than I am, come in, lay in the bed in between us, and he will just share what's going on in his life. It's those moments, those emotional things. Fight for those moments. Those guys are well worth fighting for. There's a couple things in marriage I'd really recommend you fight for. Maybe let's just give you kind of this cool vision. in your workbooks, this is not going to be in notes that you have, so turn to page 44 in your book on where you can take personal journal stuff and write these down real quick. My job with Lynn, as I care for her, as I fight for her, you know what, sometimes I need to know what I need to fight for. Here's one of them. Responsibly guide life's adventure. I want Lynn to live an adventure. I want Lynn to be successful. I want Lynn to be the president of the family that gets to do her fullest potential, right? That's my job. My job is to guide that adventure. So when Lynn says, you know what, I'd love to go out to Colorado for a week and backpack by myself, I want to make that happen so that her adventure can take place. I also need to guide the adventure both in her career and everything else. That does not mean I control anything. It means that I am part of the process of saying, I want Lynn to live an adventure. I want Lynn to be fulfilled. My greatest joy, to be honest with you, really is to see her fulfilled. Probably more than anything else other than my relationship with Christ is seeing her fulfilled. My next greatest joy is seeing my grandson taken care of, or just seeing him is pretty much it. But outside of that, man, those things are huge. All right? In marriage, help your wife live her adventure. Number 2, I naturally look to protect. Now, I'm thinking about you guys right now who are saying, well, I'm not married. Or I was married and blew it, or whatever else, or something happened and it really wounded me in the process. Or I understand all that. The principles are still the same, whether or not we apply them to a marriage, or whether we apply them to a dating relationship, or whether we just apply them across the board in healthy relationships. The need to protect is everything. My wife, when she feels protected by me, feels loved by me. I need to fight for the things that will wound her. So if I sense somebody's wounding her, then I'm going to move in. I'm going to step in between. Protection. Everyone behind me should feel safe, right? That's when we get to that area of fighting for people. Third one, passionately seek relationship. Passionately seek relationship. This is so important to understand. If Lynn says to me, honey, what do you want for your birthday? Guess what I say? I give the male answer. You know what the male answer is? It's not another toy. If you say it's another toy, you're a sick man. The male answer is, I want sex. Honey, all I want for my birthday is sex. Let's have just wild, crazy sex. That's what, for years, that's all I wanted for my birthday. Guess what? Every year I've ever asked Lynn what she wants for her birthday, to my horror, she's never said, sex. Never once. I'm willing to give it to you, baby. I'm here for you on your birthday. You know what? Passionately seek relationship. When Lynn thinks, what does she want for her birthday? And her language of love is gifts, premeditated acts of thoughtfulness. But what happens when I get involved with her is her longing. A woman's longing is relational. Remember, emotionally responding? That's what our job is. So be very, very careful that we don't get carried away and make it about our thought process. It's about their thought process. We're the Secret Service agent caring for their thought process and who they are. It's a fun adventure. One more, take a look at it, and that's in a marital relationship. This is important to us. Thoughtfully long for oneness. When you get to sexuality, it is not about me. It's about oneness. It's about relationship. Everything about sex is relational. We're going to talk about that next week when we talk about kryptonite, which is the whole male sexuality thing. When we get there, I want us to understand that part of our existence is really designed to be about oneness. Why I believe women are wired differently than men sexually is because it drives us to oneness, not to just a quick experience. And so getting there is probably an exciting part of our journey. So that just helps you a little bit to know these are things well worth fighting for. A couple more things across the board, not necessarily in marriage. Learn to fight for when hurdles stand between your goals and your ability to achieve your calling. When there's hurdles that are standing between the things that you need to do and what you're calling, you have to fight beyond those. I've gone through, and I got to be careful on time here for you guys, but I want you to know that I've gone through an interesting journey. I wanted to be the head of things. I've owned companies. I've been a senior pastor. I've had multiple staff people working for me over the years. I want to be the head of something. And in recent days, I realized that to hit my calling, I probably am not going to spend a lot of time being the head of something. I'll be on a team. I'll be pretty important in that team, but I probably won't be the head of it. That was a hard learning lesson for me. I had to learn what to fight for and what not to fight for. So I sold my companies. And I'm not the senior pastor at LCBC, David Ashcraft is. And I'm not the head of Knights of the 21st Century, Roy Smith is. I've learned a positional thing that's going on, and now I'm fighting for that position. So it's some clarity things. One more thing to fight for. And that is, when his values are being challenged through dishonesty, domination, manipulation, and abuse. when your values are being challenged, when you're going through this time, when somebody is trying to make you do the wrong, when you know what the right is, fight. Fight. Maybe it's flee. Maybe that's part of your fight. Maybe it's self-preservation. But you're going to have to fight so that you do not give in. A lot of us are giving in to stuff we should never give in to. All right. Now, what happens when the aggressive response is harmful? And I think we're sort of easy for us to know this one. When one reacts without fully listening to the truth in another person's position. When somebody reacts without fully listening to the truth of another person's position, that is the wrong time to fight. I'll confess to you, I haven't had many punching blow fights in my lifetime. I've had a few, not many. One of them occurred, I think it was my sophomore year in high school. I'm sitting in the lunchroom when a guy by the name of Ken walks up to me and goes, "Hey Keith, are you mad at Donnie?" "What are you talking about?" "Are you mad at Donnie for what he did?" "What did Donnie do?" "Well, Donnie wrote all over your shirt during your last period class." I said, "What?" "Yeah, the whole time you were sitting in class, he's writing all over your shirt, man. You didn't feel it?" I said, "No." So I get up, I walk across the cafeteria, and there's Donnie eating a liverwurst and onion sandwich. I have no idea what he's eating. And I go, BAM! That's the kind of way I fight, when a guy's not looking, eating a sandwich. But I hit him across the ear, and he goes, wham, and liverwurst and onion goes flying up, and he turns and goes, dude, what was that for?" I said, "For this? For what you did to me?" "For what?" "For writing on my shirt, you jerk." "Keith, there's nothing on your shirt. I didn't write on your shirt." "Yeah, you did. John, see the stuff on my shirt." "Keith, there's nothing on your shirt, man." That's the kind of fights I have because I didn't check out. Donnie actually was far more gracious. He did write on my shirt for the next 6 years just to teach me a lesson right through college. But the reality was, you know what's happening? I'm saying to him, dude, I'm not checking it out. Guys, a lot of us get in trouble because we don't check it out. Let me look at the second thing that deals with when not to fight. When one actions needlessly crush an individual beyond what is helpful to their development. There's a time when you crush somebody by your actions. We do that a lot with our kids. Be very careful about how we crush a spirit. What's important to a child and we dismiss it. There's a whole bunch of stories I can tell you about that whole area in my life and in Lynn's life. But I tell you, I've worked real hard not to do that. I remember moments in my life where I've needlessly crushed somebody with a word, with an action. Maybe it's rooted in my own fear. Maybe it was rooted in my own needing to elevate myself. Guys, when you fight and you destroy somebody else, it gets overwhelmingly destructive. Look at the next one. Times when an aggressive response is harmful is when anger is utilized to cover up true emotions such as sadness, grief, fear, anxiety, and disappointment. Anger is an interesting thing. It kind of bubbles up and explodes out of us. And sometimes all it is just covering up stuff we can't even speak into. The hardest part of my journey with Caleb on this round of cancer is that I'm trying to figure out my emotions. I mean, my emotions are all over the place. I mean, things I used to tolerate, I'm not tolerating right now. And it's not in the boys. It's certainly not in Caleb. It's not there. It's coming up in other areas. Things that's the way they've been for a while. And now all of a sudden they're going to the top. What you feel down there, when your fist helps you deal with what you feel down there, you're not fighting for the right reason. It's when you need a gut check and figure this out. Look at the next one. Times when an aggressive response is harmful is when fighting for an issue may distract from a more important and significant goal. And boy, that's so key. I think one of the hardest things for us to grab is if we're not careful about what issues we fight for, we're going to miss the most important ones. And sometimes you get caught up in minutia and you fight for things that aren't really important. We talk about warriors from time to time. There was a warrior, a leader. His name was Ronald Reagan. He was the president of the United States for a period of time. Actually ran for president 3 times, only got elected the last time and then got reelected, but ran twice before he got elected. He was an interesting man. Obviously, you know he's an actor. Obviously, you know he was a man who had changed his position. At one time was a New Deals guy, and then obviously became the master of Reaganomics and some of his view of what was important about the world. And he was all about balancing budgets, and he was all about getting rid of the Cold War. He was all about certain things that were very much part of him when he became the president. As he had done this swing in his life, he became a man of high principle. This man of high principles, these were his driving goals. This is what would take him on and on as he would go down this thing. Reagan knew what was worth fighting for and what wasn't worth fighting for. It's what makes us now look back on him. Even if no matter what your political persuasion is, there's a degree of respect for what he accomplished. He dropped inflation that was huge. He dropped the prime lending rate. He dropped all kinds of things, as well as dropped the wall in the Cold War. In that process, Ronald Reagan gives us a glimpse into who he is. In this quote that I want you to read, I'll put it on the screens. To have a vision, to dream of a better, safer world, and the courage, persistence, and patience to turn that dream into reality. Reagan had this sense as a leader that these are the things that are important. These are the things worth fighting for, to be known as. And to this day, regardless of how you view him politically, you look at him as a man that went, wow, he made this amazing commitment and stayed on track. Now, in order to do that, though, he's going to have to deal with this. How do you make that commitment and still do the second one that we want to look at, the second instinct, and that's to avoid pain. The instinct to avoid pain, Roman numeral 2. In order to have an instinct to avoid pain, a knight's going to need to do the following. You're going to need to expand his pain threshold. If you're going to be a warrior, you're going to have to learn to expand your pain threshold. Some of the guys I respect the most are guys that are special forces guys. And all you guys that are in that area, well done. I appreciate you so many levels. We can't thank all of the veterans enough. I mean, just what you guys have done to make our nation a very different place. And for you that are listening overseas and in other parts of the world, part of what we have in the United States is this amazing freedom that's been made possible with guys like this. I believe that guys that are in special forces, especially guys like Navy SEALs, one of the things they need to learn to do in order to become the man they're designed to do is to raise their pain threshold. Hence, not a Navy SEAL. Wish I could be. I'm pretty impressed with that. I actually have sons who are willing to do that. Or guys that have just the courage to take it to the next level in their athletics or whatever else. You and I need to learn the joy of raising our pain threshold. Pain emotional, pain physical, pain on every level. And that's part of what it takes to be a strong knight. The avoidance of pain sometimes means that we raise our pain level. 2, he needs to stay away from situations and relationships that harm him. You and I need to stay away from things that do damage to us. I think that when we miss this, we go through pain unnecessary. I really want us to think always about the person that's causing us to get wounded unnecessarily. I know I keep coming back to this, guys. I know we keep talking about this trail after trail, but it's so big for a guy. See, I believe that relationships are huge for men. I think we need to have these relationships. But if you don't take men that call you up, but rather men that tear you down, you keep ending up dealing with all kinds of pain you weren't necessarily having to deal with. Let's look at the next one. The instinct to avoid pain, a knight needs to listen to the messages that pain sends. You need to listen to what's important, so that if you're feeling good all over, but you have a pain in your knee, that's what you listen to. If you're feeling good with your business, but this one area is starting to drive you crazy, you listen to that. And everything's working pretty good in your family, but there's this area over here, you need to listen to the sources of pain. And so just to say, it's okay, I'm just going to ignore it, doesn't solve this. There's a reason why there's a reaction bubbling up. There's a reason why you're feeling what you're feeling. To ignore it doesn't mean it's going to go away. 4th one, utilize his experience with pain to understand others. One of the reasons that this avoidance of pain issue, when you embrace it, when you understand this area of not avoiding pain, you're going to understand a part of it so you can help others. The Bible talks about in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, it says, the sufferings we go through to help other people. That's good stuff. It allows us the opportunity, guys, to say to somebody, I understand. It's where tenderness comes from. Every night, look at that suit. That suit over here is a tough, hard shell of a suit. You better learn the art of tenderness, or it will always feel, as you walk around as a knight, as someone that's dangerous. And we're going to talk a lot about that and some of the things that are the most powerful weapons we have. Let me look at a few more. Number 5, tolerate pain that comes from, okay, I'm just going to fly through these. These are kind of cool. Attempting to reach any goal. You write down a knighthood plan, you have goals, it's going to require pain. 2, striving to serve others. There's always pain in being a servant. It's easier to receive than to give. Getting in shape physically. to reach that goal, to take the pain, to get you to the next level, to do more crunches. Living up to one's values. It's harder to live up to your values than it is to just give in and do what you feel like at any given moment. Being interpersonally connected in any intimate relationship. It's easier to deal with pain if we understand that, man, you're going to have to be relational. In the movie Pursuit of Happiness, Christopher Gardner is a guy that's in pretty bad shape financially and is trying to better himself. His dreams keeps getting shattered, but is trying to better himself. His wife has now left him in the journey that he's in, where he's working for free for a brokerage firm, hoping to be one of the only hire they'll make out of all the interns that work through this program. And Chris has a son named Christopher. When his wife leaves him, he leaves the son too. And Chris is incredibly committed to his son, but has nothing. So they're sleeping in rescue missions and wherever they can find. And in the scene I want you to think about right here, you find Chris and Christopher in a subway station. And he's pretty sure that he has no place for them to sleep that night. And so he builds a story around a machine, that his last machine to sell that might give him some money. It's a bone density scanner, and he tells his son that it's a magical machine. His son doesn't believe him. He says, try it. It can take us, it's a transporting machine. It's a time machine. It can take us anywhere we want. So Christopher joins in the game, and they decide they want to go back into history, way back into the dinosaur age. So Christopher pushes the button. And then his dad, helping Christopher to avoid the pain of the moment, makes an imaginary world and takes him into the bathroom, seals the door up to the bathroom, puts paper towels all over the floor, and says, "This is our cave." And lets Christopher fall asleep in his arms as he has tears flowing down his face as he realizes the danger in which he's put his son in, having no other recourse. That scene, that powerful moment in that movie, as you're all watching it, you're all thinking about it, you always remember it. If you've seen the movie, you remember it. That moment where he is just holding his son, crying. You get the idea of what it means to, man, I need to avoid pain, whatever it takes, for those around me. And sometimes that's tremendous personal sacrifice in creating and kind of this magical world. It's interesting, the resiliency of children. You'll see it later in the movie as you continue to walk through it. Let me give you the next instinct. The instinct to pursue pleasure. Roman numeral 3. This is something a knight needs to do. An instinct to pursue pleasure. And what I like about this that's so cool is that in the movie Pursuit of Happiness, you see all the pain, but it's all designed to what? Pursue happiness. And Pursuit of Happiness, it's pursuit of pleasure. Pleasure is a cool thing. Let me give you a couple things about that I think will help you. Number one, it'll enjoy the positive benefits of hard work. If all you do is work and you receive nothing out of it, it'll drain you. It'll just wear you right out. Pleasure will give you the benefits of hard work. The other day I got done doing a particularly large project for our company, and I found myself exhausted. I found myself absolutely exhausted, and there's just something amazing about just laying down on a bed and just resting for a little bit. I didn't even take a nap. I'm a Phillies fan, so I watched the ball game. And as I was laying there, it was amazing just how refreshing that simple act of pleasure. But it was the result of hard work. If I hadn't worked hard, I couldn't afford to lay there, right? I had to do things. But the part of the joy is learning the art of receiving pleasure that'll help you work through things. Look at another thing it'll do for you. Number 2, you're going to learn to say no to doing some things that just because they feel good. That's really important, guys. You're going to learn to say no to things because pleasure's a lot of places. There are certain foods that taste really good to eat. You love to do it, but you need to learn to say no because, hey, it's not always going to be beneficial. If I gave you poison on your favorite food, it would taste good, but it's not good for you, right? So the art of learning to say no, you got pleasure, it's out there. You need to learn that art of knowing when to say no, when not to say no, because things are by design. God design is pretty cool. We live in the world of pleasure. It's that instinct that we have. Look at the next one. The instinct of a knight to pursue a pleasure needs to exchange an immature viewpoint of what is pleasurable in life for one that is consistent with the manhood process. I want us to think in terms of what is noble here. I want us to think in terms of not just what feels good for the moment, not just what feels good for just a couple seconds. If I told you how many guys have messed up their lives for a few minutes of pleasure, well, in fact, I don't have to tell you. You know, right? You've done it. I've done it. We've hurt somebody. Learning to control this instinct. You get to the edge. Don't just jump. You have no parachute on. You have no bungee cord. Don't just jump over the edge. Sometimes you and I need to sit here and we need to say, when we get right to the edge and all those rocks are down there, all the danger's there, guys, back off. Stop playing on that edge. I don't even have to tell you what that edge is. You know in your own life. I know what mine are. You know what yours are. Look at the next one. In Roman numeral number 4, it says this, and I love this. How to deal with the outside battles for the knight to be victorious over his instincts. Here are some things he must do. These are absolutely essential that a man does. Use his aggression to help himself and others live better lives. If you want to be victorious over the battles, you're going to have to use your aggression to help himself and others live better lives. There's something about this that I want you to understand. Fighting is a natural instinct. It will make a difference for those behind you. In almost every movie you've ever seen, in almost every book you've ever read, in almost everything you ever imagined as a kid, the thing that made it so worthwhile was everybody behind you that needed to be protected. The nobility of a knight is when he gets this idea that I am engaged with you for a purpose. My aggression is not to get what I want, it's to protect what's important. It's fighting for the truth in a world that doesn't fight for truth. So your instinct to fight is a good one. Take advantage of it. But learn to control it. If you don't control it, you're just punching and swinging at the wind. You're Don Quixote hitting windmills. You get involved in doing things that are just foolish. So take the idea of aggression and understand that that's part of who we are and how we work. Look at another area. It comes under how all this comes together as we're looking at these 6 instincts, these last 3 that we've been looking at. Accept and move towards the pain necessary to exercise new strength areas. You want to be victorious over the instincts? You have to accept and move towards pain that is necessary to exercise new strength areas. That is so key to where you and I develop. Everything I'm going to ask you to do, I'll be honest with you. Here we are, week 7, right? We're not even really a third of the way through, and I'm going to ask you to keep moving with me because I'm going to move you towards the pain. Now, I'm not going to drop you off the cliff. I'm not going to let you get shattered, but I'm going to let you play on this edge a little bit. But you're going to play on the edge not because the goal is to fall. Actually, the goal on this edge, this gut check, is to cause you to say, do you have the courage to do what will take you to the next level? This gets so exciting. So I'm willing to fight where I need to fight. I'm learning to avoid pain when it's necessary to avoid pain, but I'm also willing to embrace pain when it'll take me to the next level. These are all those instincts. And then the last one that we've been talking about, the one about pleasure. Look at this statement, number 3. Develop his core and experience joy as his reward. As you develop the core within you, you take all the parts of your dog tag, all the things we have in that core, and you say, all right, I'm going to start exercising right choices. Everything on the dog tag ends up with a right choice. I take my body, my soul, my spirit. I take my mind. I take my shadow. I take this whole area that we call self, and I make choices. And those choices, when they're made well, running after things that will bring reward, but our goal is a very different kind of reward. So you want to utilize your core. See, what will make the difference between stupid choices and good choices is when you make all the consideration of your core. Remember, if you don't have your spirit alive, your instincts will dominate you. Your shadow will dominate you. So you have to connect God through Christ to get that spirit alive, because when you do, you start making better choices. There's There's this moment in the movie Pursuit of Happiness where everything that Chris has gone through has been painful. Everything. And now it's coming down to that decision as to whether or not he'll get hired by the company. I want you to think about this scene. One of the guys in the company walks up to Christopher. It's the day before, and he says, "Tomorrow's the big day." There they are in the bathroom. They're washing their hands, and he says, "Has it been hard? Has it been as hard as it looks?" And yeah, yes, it's been hard. Well, we've just watched and experienced the whole movie. We know it's been hard, but has it been worth it? No, he thinks so. And he leaves work that day, takes Christopher to a beach, or the shores of where the San Francisco Bay Bridge is. And he talks about all of his life. He's had dreams, and all of his life how he's failed to hit those dreams. All his life he just wanted to be something, and all of his life he's tried to be more and more, and it's just not working. Would this be one more failure? You feel the tension as the two of them celebrate on the beach, Christopher in his innocence, Chris feeling all the pain. And then that day, the next day, when he's called in, and you feel the tension, he's called into the office, and you know this is either you made it or you haven't made it moment. And the guys gather around him, and they said, well, he said, "I wonder if you'd be willing to wear that shirt that you wore today again tomorrow," because see, Chris on his first day of work had come right from a job he was doing, didn't even have time to get home and get changed, and came in a dirty T-shirt. Now he's wearing a dress shirt. He said, "Are you willing to wear that shirt tomorrow? Because tomorrow you're going to work with us." And you see it. You see the tears well up in his face. You know this time it's not tears of a cave protecting his son in a subway somewhere. These are tears of happiness. They ask him if it's been as hard as they think it is, and he says, yeah, it's been hard, real hard. But he thanks them, greets him, and he walks down those stairs, and you feel the freedom as he leaves his company, and he sees the crowds rushing by, and he raises his hands, and he goes, "It's been worth it." He went to the edge. He played right there. He checked his gut, and his instincts coming under control made all the difference. You know, you feel that scene, don't you? You feel everything about it. And you think, can I raise my arms and can I say, has it been worth it? Has it been worth it? Well, it has. It really will. I'll tell you, as a knight, it's worth the pain. It's worth pushing through it. It's worth finding what's worth getting pleasure over. It's worth the whole idea of knowing when to fight. These things all fit. Now, there's one more you need to look at. It's number 4. And that is that you're going to need to come back again and deal with this trail next week. It's this. Return next week to learn the ways and manage and guide man's most difficult instinct. That's the instinct of your sexuality. It's the kryptonite of a male. I want to do something differently as you anticipate next week. I want you to take your books and close them for a second so you're all looking at the same front page, and then just simply open the front page. Remember a couple trails ago, I read to you the Code of Honor. Well, below the Code of Honor is actually a prayer, a commitment prayer. Up until this point, I haven't really prayed with you, and instead of me just praying sort of at you, I'll pray with you. I'll actually read this, and you read along with me. Prayer of commitment. I think this is a prayer of commitment of a knight who's willing to go to the edge. He's willing to say, you know what? I believe that I can be what God designed me to be. In order to do that, I'm going to have to release some things and grab others. Let me, in closing, read you this prayer. Our solemn commitment. God, you've created us as males to be men. And from the beginning, we have failed to step up to your calling. Speak to me this day in clear terms regarding where I am on my manhood journey. Let me see the next steps of self-confrontation and development, and give me the strength to do the right thing. May I have an interest and love towards my brothers who are on a similar journey, and allow me to be a present and positive partner in our mutual work. May my wife, children, church, worksite, community, and world see my changes and rejoice in my contributions to their lives. Because of your strength, I pray. Amen. Gentlemen, Knights of the 21st century, warriors, are men who deal with our instincts. And as our gut is checked, we change the world. Thanks for joining.